shadow. The shadow of my past haunts me. Oh, but I can't cower now. I must be a brave pup and confront my past by defeating it in the future. No, I'm not talking about Shadow the Hedgehog, although the Sonic Shadow Yowie game is looking really good. Generations is great, so I'm super looking forward to how it's gonna play out. Anyway, I'm referring to something much scarier than what you'd find in any Sonic game. Yes, even Big the Cat. Hidden in one of Kirby's several spin-offs is a speedrun so spooky, so terrifying, so fun. I'll be honest, I love this category a lot, that only the bravest of souls may challenge it. I ask you, are you a bad enough dude to fight Shadow Kirby and Kirby Fighters 2? But enough about that. If you want to learn more about less scary speedruns, I have an entire playlist of when I spent all of August explaining and gushing about Kirby's any percent speedruns and ranking them. Check out that playlist. And while you're at it, consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel. It would help me out an absolute ton, and not only in getting my videos wider recognition, but also in stopping my arch nemesis, Captain Stitch, from destroying my channel. He's completely abandoned Deputy Pup and begun his conquest alone, but with enough support, I can fend off his attacks and enlist the help of Bored, who we all obviously know and love. Obviously. If you'd like to go the extra mile, you can also become a pup train on Patreon or join as a mempup on YouTube for nifty perks, including early access to all Kirby Month speedrun ranking videos. Special thanks to my head-patting Fluffle fan pup trains and mempups, Freakish Uproar, Lydia Scribe, and Vilafar. I love you all. Kirby Fighters 2 is one of those fun games that has multiple different categories of any percent. The one we're covering today, I know, none of the usual build-up I have for these, that's insane, is the story mode any percent. Now, there is a full start-to-finish story mode requiring you to complete Chapter 5, but there's also a variation where you just need to finish Chapter 4. The game does a weird fake-out where it implies Chapter 4 is the ending, but it's not really. But hey, just because Kirby lied to me, and by Kirby, I mean Dead and Mennonite, what punks. Boyfriends doesn't mean that we can't split this into any percent story mode and hundo story mode. But before we get there, why not the single-handed mode? Surely clearing a quick arcade run with your ability of choice is a super enjoyable experience, right? Well, you're right, but for speedrunning at least, I prefer the story mode for one big reason that I'll get into later, but also because it feels like it has a lot more purpose to it. I kind of just feel like I'm playing a bunch of random battles in the single-handed mode, and again, I prefer that casually, it's awesome, but it's not the same when speedrunning. Getting to that final boss, the metaphorical final boss, don't worry, we'll get to them, is a more enjoyable run, at least for me. That said, even I have to admit that single-handed mode, that uses IGT, the savior of speedrunning, so I mean, there is that. But okay, what makes the story mode so cool? What makes me want to be a two-handed puppy instead of a single-handed one? A huge part of the appeal of the story mode is the nature of the power-ups. After battles, you get some HP back and are allowed to pick between 3 or 4 if you have the item selection plus boosts to give to Kirby. There are some fun niche ones, deal more damage to bosses, make your buddy smarter, or my absolute favorite, deal more damage to Magolor! But the one you really want to see is Attack Plus. This does exactly what you'd expect, you deal more damage. You stack up on these bad boys and you can take out these nasty computers in no time. Combine this with, say, deal more damage to Magolor, and you can literally knock them out in, I don't know, 2 or 3 hits. Genuinely more satisfying than some entire speedruns. Unfortunately, the worst part of the run rears its ugly head. You know it, you love it, RNG. It isn't nearly as bad as Superstar Stacker, thankfully, but there are very real chances that you just get unlucky here. The power-ups you get in between rounds are entirely luck-based, and while you can work with some things that aren't attack boosts, the whole run revolves around attack boosts. If you don't get them, you are weak, and if you are weak, you are unlucky. Now, not good luck, I can handle. HP regen, better health, more item spawns, better buddy, or most importantly, would deal more damage to a Magaloy. But if you don't get the attack you need early enough on, you're going to suffer. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. Oh, this isn't even mentioning that stupid mint leaf sticker. But how does the actual run work? Well, for Chapter 1, we have a very limited amount of abilities to choose from. We start from a new game, after all, which, yes, means we're gonna level up and unlock a lot of cool stuff. Yay! By the end of the any percent run, we unlock Parasol. So if you want to think about this as unlock Parasol and then we'll update it in Mennonite percent, that's fine with me. That's kind of how I see it anyway, so yay. Anyway, I'm largely avoiding talking about Chapter 1 because we use Sword, given Bomb and Staff are your other options. Sword, admittedly, does have some cool tech. If you attack, hold B, and then let go before charging your charge attack of charging chargedness, this. You can cancel it out and do the first hit of Sword's not charge attack of whatever over and over. Even I can admit, it's pretty cool, and unlike later chapters, this one is RNG free. Given it's so short, you're guaranteed to get at least 4 attack boosts, and there's only 5 chapters. Huzzah! What Chapter 2 lacks in not being stupid and free of RNG nonsense, it makes up for in the ability variety. You have more abilities to pick from now, and while not all of them are ideal, a recent development, a development that I'm sure is optimal or just cool, but I'm fine with either, has been that of the Wrestler. I tried it for the first time when recording this run, and I did awful, even worse than my audio right now, holy moly, but I did see the vision. The standard idea is to use Sword, just like you did in Chapter 1, but hoping RNG is on your side. The Way of the Wrestler calls for you to use Headbutt, done by attacking in the air while holding up, to juggle your opponents. Evidently, it's not easy, and you need a whole different strat for bosses and mini-bosses, but it is fast. The second place run on the leaderboards for Speedrun.com, SRC, actually uses Wrestler, which, I don't know, that has to mean something. Unfortunately for Wrestler, it gets hammered in Chapter 3. Ugh, jeez, maybe I should watch my wording. Whatever. Chapter 3 starts the Hammer Show, an ability so powerful because you can bonk people in the face repeatedly. Seriously, that's all you need to do. If you need to quarter enemies, you can do dash attack stuff, or do regular jumping attack stuff, or do hammer flip stuff if you want to be funny and not optimal, which I'm there with you. I'm just saying. Out of all the chapters, I probably find this one the least interesting, not to mention, it's the one that I find RNG impacts you the most. Earlier chapters are too short to be truly RNG cucked during. Later chapters are too long, and at some point, RNG's not gonna hit you, but this chapter, it's just right. Something Puss in Boots' Last Wish. Chapter 4, though, is when things get exciting again. This is the longest chapter of any percent by far, spanning 30 fights. You'd think RNG would be at its worst here, and it sure does sting when it doesn't go your way. Still, with there being 30 floors, it's actually less likely that things won't go at least well enough. I can't speak from a statistics standpoint. This puppy likes algebra, thank you very much. But from experience, I can certainly vouch that less of my runs have died in Chapter 4 than in Chapter 3. The strats are largely the same, only more effective because you not only have more chances for attack boosts, but you also get character effective stickers, meaning you can deal more damage. You get the idea. You also get to pick a buddy Kirby this one, so rip Gooey. No restraining orders for you this chapter. But I've been hiding the truth long enough. You may think that Kirby Fighters 2 is a fighting game. The platform fighter or not, you'd still assume so. And for the most part, you'd be right. It's a great fighting game. I would heavily recommend it. But for a brief period of solitary time, an elongated moment where you cannot, will not, should not feel or comprehend the truth of what you are about to experience, Kirby Fighters 2 is not a fighting game. It becomes a pure, unadulterated horror game. And that moment is Shadow Kirby. Good God, where do I even start with Shadow Kirby? Well, you fight them on floor 20 of the 4th chapter, meaning the run at this point is almost over. It's high pressure there already. Unlike every other Kirby fight in the game, Shadow Kirby has a full boss health bar. Basically, they get all of the perks of being a boss, on top of having all of the perks of being Kirby. They copy your ability too, meaning for the speedrun, they're using a hammer. And you know how you use hammer because it does ridiculous damage? Well, now you have a boss rushing at you with that very same ability with far more health than you have, and on your end, you have no consistent strats to rely on. Shadow Kirby has really good AI and will not let you whap them in the face like every other fight. And if you mispace or predict what they're gonna do wrong, you're gonna eat big damage. All of this when you're nearing single digits in terms of how many fights that you have left to clear. Spoiler warning, basically every other fight after this, total joke. Day-to-day and Meta Knight, they take a while, they're not hard. The other fights, they can get kind of tricky, fall to the sheer amount of damage that you can deal to them with hammer. Shadow Kirby, the scariest run killer I have ever come across in Kirby Fighters 2. Now, if you're watching the footage, you can probably tell I've got this down pretty okay. I got this fight first try. I've had so many auto heals here that the damage they dealt, it didn't mean much. All that good stuff. Trust me, this is not a coincidence. I know this fight inside and out. It still took me a full minute, and if I want it to be optimal, it should be closer to the 30-second mark. I cannot stress enough just how scary this fight is. It's awesome! Overall, as terrifying as Shadow Kirby is, well, in part due to because of how scary Shadow Kirby is, this run is a blast. We do miss out on Chapter 5, and as much of a drag as that chapter is casually, it's actually really fun when you know how to Izumi. You use Fighter, and while you still go for attack boosts, you prioritize Charge Boost instead. Getting the max power Hadouken from virtually nothing, faster than a regular Hadouken in Street Fighter, is really fun to play around with. Shadow Kirby is in this chapter, but unfortunately kind of falls apart due to how awesome Red Fireball is. Kind of a shame given the horror game that they are in part 4, but from the practical speedrunning sense, oh boy howdy, that is a lifesaver. And now it's time for Fluffle Fans. It's Klaire Fluffle's speedrunning tip of the day. Yay! For Fighters 2, this is less of a mechanical tip and kind of more of a silly one, but a useful one all the same. You may have noticed in the footage that, when discussing chapters 2 and 3, I'm using Gooey as my buddy instead of Bandana D. But why? Bandana D is bandana-based! Which is very true, but Gooey is... Gooeyest? I don't know. Point is, we love Gooey, but also Bandana D has a lot more moves that will knock the computers out of the corner, hit them, launch them away, whatever. Get them away from your combos is what I'm trying to say. Gooey does have a much longer rapid jab, but it doesn't ruin your positioning and game plan and pace and plus his other moves are a lot better for neutral, so he's actually a much safer pick for your buddy. Granted, this isn't something that I see the world record do or anything, but when we ran this at K-Star, I noticed I wasn't the only one pulling out the Gooey strats. I am near positive that I was the first person to pull out the Gooey strats, but I wasn't the only one, and to me, that's super hype. Yeah, for once I didn't mention this super early on, but we actually ran Kirby Fighters 2 any% at K-Star this year. And yes, this is where Chapter 2 Wrestler debuted, to the best of my knowledge. K-Star is a Kirby speedrunning relay race held by both the Japanese and Western communities where you speedrun in a relay race. Shocker. This is important because not only is K-Star a pretty solid lock for like my whole favorite day of the year, but if you couldn't guess, I was specifically one of the people who ran KF2. This wasn't my first K-Star, but not only was it the first where I didn't place last, it was also my first time really learning KF2's story mode. Like I said, Chapter 5 left a bad taste in my mouth casually, but being able to tie this speedrun to an event as fun as this year's K-Star, call me a biased pup, but I can't help it. I just loved that event so much. I also love making videos for you all, so let me get back to that. I have been Klaire, thank you all so very much for watching, and I will see you around. Bye-bye!